Hi everyone, this is Eagle News. I'm Ralph Cornell in Washington. It's Saturday, October 29th, 2022 here in the nation's capital. We begin our program with news about the water you drink. 3 of the world's top organizations are calling on governments to address the need for universal access to safe drinking water, with a quarter of the world's population still having none. Jeff Sanidad reports.
According to the State of the World's Drinking Water Report, 2 billion people have gained access to safe drinking water in the past 20 years. However, the report also says that despite this progress, this number also means that a quarter of the world's population is still left behind. Water insecurity is experienced by communities worldwide, and climate change is not helping. The report notes that rapid urbanization is increasing the strain on cities' capacity to deliver water to the millions of people living in informal communities and slums. Director of World Health Organization Department of Environment, Climate Change and Health, Dr. Maria Neira says access to safe drinking water is a human right, not a luxury. Saraj Kumar Jha of the World Bank's group's Water Global Practice says investing in water and sanitation is critical to health, economic growth, and the environment. UNICEF Interim Director of Water, Sanitation and Hygiene, Aidan Cronin, says no child should be faced with a choice of drinking dirty water, a leading killer of children, or making dangerous journeys to collect water and missing out on school. The report presents the data on the links between water, health, and development, and the status of drinking water. It provides actionable recommendations to accelerate access to safe drinking water. To provide universal access to safe drinking water by 2030, the report calls on governments and their partners to dramatically increase political commitment to drinking water and quadruple their investments. Jeff Sanidad, Washington, D.C., Eagle News. We live in extraordinary times.
October 23rd through the 29th marks the 10th International Lead Poisoning Prevention Week. This year, the world's top health agency says we must say no to lead poisoning that kills almost 1 million people yearly and harms millions more. Rochelle Feria has the details.
The World Health Organization says close to 1 million people die from lead poisoning every year. Add to that, millions more, most of them children, get exposed to low levels of lead that causes lifelong health problems. These health problems include anemia, hypertension, immunotoxicity, and toxicity to the reproductive organs. The neurological and behavioral effects of lead could be irreversible. WHO recommends that the source of lead exposure should be identified and action taken to reduce and terminate exposure for all individuals with a blood lead level of more than 5 microgram per deciliter. The health agency warns there is no safe level of exposure to lead, which harms particularly children's health. WHO Department of Environment, Climate Change and Health Director Dr. Maria Neira says lead exposure is especially dangerous to children's developing brains and can result in reduced intelligence quotient or IQ, attention span, impaired learning ability, and increased risk of behavioral problems. WHO identifies lead as one of 10 chemicals of major public health concern needing action by member states to protect the health of workers, children, and women of reproductive age. It calls upon all countries to ban lead paint, identify and eliminate all sources of childhood lead exposure, and educate the public regarding the dangers of misusing lead-containing products. Say No to Lead Poisoning is the theme of the 10th International Lead Poisoning Prevention Week that is from October 23 through the 29th of this year. Rochelle Feria, Washington, D.C., Eagle News. We live in extraordinary times.
California Governor Gavin Newsom is making a move to hold big oil corporations accountable for price gouging. Megs Australia has the details.
Governor Gavin Newsom moves for a price gouging penalty in the wake of record profits posted by oil companies. This action will place money back into consumers' wallets and control increasing gas prices in the state. Oil companies are profiting in the state at the expense of Californians. There are 5 major oil refineries supplying about 97% of California's gasoline. Chevron, Marathon Petroleum, PBF Energy, Phillips 66, and Valero. According to Consumer Watchdog, for the second quarter of the year, these 5 companies posted an increase of around 3 to 10 times more in revenue per gallon in comparison to the previous year. Valero Energy Corporation had second quarter profits of $4.7 billion, which is an increase of 2,801%. Trailing behind with more record increases are Phillips 66 at 981% and Chevron at 276%. This week, Valero is the first to release its third quarter financial report. The oil company recorded $2.82 billion in net income from July to September compared to $463 million last year. That is an increase of more than 500%. PBF Energy and Chevron are also scheduled to report their financial results, followed by Marathon Petroleum and Phillips 66 next week. Huge profits are expected. In this third quarter alone, oil companies increased gas prices to record high for consumers, although crude oil prices and state taxes and fees decreased. The California governor has already taken steps to decrease gas prices by going to winter blend gasoline, which is a lower grade but less costly to produce. He is also making oil companies doing businesses in the state accountable. Californians will be happy to see that gas prices have been decreasing at the pumps. Meg Estrella, Los Angeles, California, Eagle News. We live in extraordinary times.
Meanwhile, in Ontario, Canada, John Tory of Toronto wins his third term as mayor with over 60% of voters in his favor. Joshua Santillana reports.
John Tory wins Toronto's mayoral elections Monday and will serve his third term as mayor of the largest city in Canada. He is set to be the longest-serving mayor of the city. The 67-year-old incumbent mayor won an overwhelming 62% of the votes, or roughly around 342,000 votes, against Gil Penalosa, pulling about 18% of the results, or around 98,000 votes. Mayor John Tory was declared a landslide winner Monday night, to no surprise, as he has been leading the polls and has 8 years as Toronto's mayor under his belt. Ending up second, Gil Penalosa congratulates his opponent and says that Mayor Tory's success will be Toronto's gain, and that he asks the mayor to listen and use the other candidates' ideas to make Toronto better. Mayor Tory has run his election campaign primarily under the promises of more affordable housing and delivering the Scarborough Subway and Eglinton Crosstown West extension, moving ahead with more LRT lines across the city, all with a $28 billion transit plan. Joshua Santillana, Toronto, Ontario, Eagle News. We live in extraordinary times.
Very interesting stories from Thomas I. Likeness today. Central banks increasing interest rates again. Baby chimpanzees being kidnapped for ransom. Coin toss deciding a mayoral race. And the world's dirtiest man dying at 94, months after bathing again. These and more on this week's Correspondent at Large.
And now news and commentary from around the globe. Interest rates continue to go up no matter where you live. The European Central Bank hiked its rate by 75 basis points this past week, puts its highest main rate now at 2.25%. Bank President Christine Lagarde says these rising rates are pushing Europe closer to recession.
Is that to say that we are oblivious to the risk of recession? Obviously not. And obviously we are concerned particularly about those who have low income and who are more vulnerable to not only the risk of recession, but to the reality of inflation.
Lagarde says to expect more rate hikes until inflation is tamed. And now a story from the police blotter in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. The hunt is on for the victims of a kidnapping. Took place about a month ago in the middle of the night at a wildlife sanctuary. 3 baby chimps have been stolen and held for ransom. The animals had recently been rescued from poachers and brought to the sanctuary. Their captors want $200,000 to free the primates. The sanctuary says it has no money. They figure it's an inside job. Security has been beefed up. Well, how do you settle an election when the results show the candidates got the same number of votes? In the remote Peruvian village of Corcula, a coin toss. That's right, a coin toss settled the issue when two candidates for mayor tied for first place. That's legal there. In Peru, the law allows for tied races to be decided this way. Both candidates for the top job received 236 votes. When it was over, the loser accepted the result. No claims of a stolen election here. Reunion Island in the Indian Ocean has become a whale watcher's delight this year. Not only tourists, but scientists are flocking to the region. That's because of the exceptionally large number of humpback whales. The scientists are taking advantage of the population explosion of the giant mammals. They're plunging their stethoscopes into the water. Now, a stethoscope allows them to capture the sounds and images at 360 degrees. Tour operators are smiling as well. They say they're busy ferrying visitors out to sea to watch the whales frolic in the water. And this guy I'm about to tell you about seems to have an allergy to water. Amu Haji had the dubious distinction of being the dirtiest man in the world. He recently died at the age of 94. Now, Haji lived in a village in southern Iran. He had not taken a shower or washed for decades. He was afraid the water would make him sick. Haji was single. Well, that's not surprising. He avoided attempts by villagers to get him clean, but finally bowed to pressure a few months ago and agreed to be washed. He lived between a hole in the ground and a brick shack that neighbors built for him. In an interview a number of years ago, he told the Tehran Times newspaper his unusual lifestyle was due to emotional setbacks when he was younger. Back in 7 days, and in the meantime, I wish you all peace, joy, and happiness in the ensuing week. Thomas I. Likeness, Correspondent at Large, Eagle News. We live in extraordinary times.
In a nationwide push to keep traditional knowledge and cultures alive, agencies in Papua New Guinea agree on helping communities incorporate these into their everyday living. Echo Orteleza Quinola reports on Oceania at a Glance.
The National Cultural Commission, or NCC, and the Investment Promotion Authority, or IPA, signed a Memorandum of Understanding, or MOU, to develop appropriate strategies on the use of traditional knowledge and traditional cultural expressions. The Memorandum of Understanding aims that both organizations cooperate in safeguarding traditional cultures and knowledge while harnessing resources that will benefit communities. National Cultural Commission Director Mr. Stephen Kilanda says this Memorandum of Understanding will help agencies collaborate in serving the people. Investment Promotion Authority Managing Director Clarence Huth reiterated that this partnership will address issues that surround government systems and policies.
The traditional knowledge issues and conventional intellectual property rights will overlap when attempting to protect them, and both offices need to work together to have respective IP laws to grant intellectual property rights. It becomes important for the office to be aware of what it registers as an IP.
National Cultural Commission and Investment Promotion Authority will also implement policy directions from the National Cultural Policy 2022 to 2032 and strategic objectives under the National Intellectual Property Strategy. Echo Hortaleza Quinola, Port Moresby, Papua New Guinea, Eagle News. We live in extraordinary times.
In Australia, the yearly agriculture show in Lismore is back, and spectators say what a great opportunity it is to understand where the food on our table comes from. Andrew Hayward reports.
Despite COVID-19 restrictions still in effect throughout Eastern Australia, the Lismore Agricultural Show, or the Lismore Show, is on. The annual Lismore show is an integral part of Lismore society happening every October. Since 1855, the North Coast National Agricultural and Industrial Society is incorporated, has brought early settlers together to share knowledge about farming and to show the world their achievements. It has evolved into what is now known as the Lismore Show, entertaining people for over a century. Contributing to the constant growth of tourism by attracting locals and travellers to the Lismore Show provides a yearly delight to spectators. Despite COVID-19 restrictions still in place, the agricultural show observes current safety requirements. Spectators shared with us how the show has delighted them this year.
I think it's really important people understand that these are the people that feed literally the country, and they're competing to get their cattle to be the best cows in Australia for a reason. People don't understand that there are different breeds of cows and they live in the country, and I'm like, I don't do farming, but I know that's not the same as that. I think people need to know, like, it's a huge part of our economy, and it's a huge part of the community, and we should support that. It's so fun and refreshing to be back to how things should be.
Normally it's a 12 months preparation, but because of the floods and what we've done, what's happened to Lismore this year, we've done it in the last 4 months. We've got the FMX bikes, we've got a circus, we've got the rodeo on Saturday night, and various attractions around the ground. Plus we've made it a free gate in 2022 because of the floods. The general public that come to the show just come from, we've got people coming up from Port Macquarie, Tenterfield and the coast, so we pull them from a very wide area.
Andrew Hayward, Lismore, Australia, Oceania At A Glance, Eagle News. We live in extraordinary times.
Still in Australia, works of art adorn the city centre of Blacktown in a campaign to highlight local arts and culture. Abigail Karungay tells us more.
Blacktown City Council launches a new public initiative to promote local arts and culture. Made in Blacktown, the art creations of several Western Sydney artists are displayed prominently around the city centre, some temporary and others permanent installations. A number of the artworks are large and eye-catching, like the 8-meter-tall Lightwing, which shines in different colors throughout the day. Others are simpler but just as impactful, like the female characters printed on the glass windows of Blacktown Library, celebrating the city's multicultural identity. The initiative also includes official street art as part of the council's graffiti management strategy. This gives artists a legitimate avenue to express their creativity. Colorful murals now brighten the city's laneways. The Leo Kelly Blacktown Arts Centre provides free maps with locations of all the artworks. Abigail Karungay, Sydney, Australia. Oceania At A Glance, Eagle News.
In other news, Medicare, the federal health insurance for people 65 or older in the United States, says it is now offering improved benefits and lower premiums for the year 2023. And Akui with the details on this week's Health is Wealth.
Medicare open enrollment is well underway and it runs through December 7, 2022, with changes taking effect January 1. With the inflation rate being at its highest in 40 years, it's even more important now for people who qualify for Medicare to review their coverage options, making the most cost-effective choice that meets their healthcare needs. More than 64 million people in the U.S. have Medicare, spending a good portion of their income on their medications. Prescription drugs are generally covered either through a standalone Part D plan, if you have traditional or original Medicare, or through a Medicare Advantage plan, both of which are covered by private insurance companies. As part of the Inflation Reduction Act that President Biden signed into law in August, some changes to prescription drug coverage will take effect in 2023. This includes paying no more than $35 in cost sharing for a month's supply of covered insulin product under Part D. Some plans may already offer a $35 cap. Also, people with Medicare drug coverage will pay nothing out of pocket for adult vaccines, including the shingles vaccine. Additionally, the average monthly premium for standard Part D coverage is projected to drop to $31.50 in 2023 from $32.08 currently, according to the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, or CMS. More cost savings measures intended to reduce Part D spending for people enrolled in Medicare prescription drug plan will take effect in later years. For example, in 2024, they will no longer have to pay cost sharing toward their prescription drug in the catastrophic phase, and they will benefit from an annual cap of $2,000 for out-of-pocket Part D spending starting in 2025. Currently, there is no out-of-pocket limit, regardless of whether you get your coverage as a standalone Part D option or through an Advantage plan. Now, here are some additional important things to consider when choosing your Medicare coverage plan. You know, the cost of your medication can change from year to year depending on the plan you choose. So the drug list to each plan is usually grouped by tier, usually from 1 to 5. So the higher the tier, the higher the cost. If keeping your primary care provider or doctor or specialist is important to you, then make sure that they are included in your chosen plan's network. Lastly, unless you have worked with the same trusted insurance agent in the past, beware of telemarketing calls from insurance agents who will talk you into changing your health plan by promising better coverage than what you currently have. It is not advisable to make changes to your health plans over the phone without having the chance to review and confirm the coverage you are being offered. For questions, you can visit medicare.gov or call 1-800-MEDICARE, or you can even, talk to your PCP or your primary care provider. Anna Cui, Las Vegas, Nevada, Eagle News. We live in extraordinary times.
The Philippine Nurses Association, or PNA, was established in the United States in 1972. It is to help nurses from the Philippines form a networking and support group while also giving back to the community. Despite the challenges of the recent pandemic, the 53rd chapter of the PNA in Corpus Christi, Texas, thrived in its mission to provide professional support to the frontliners who give so much to help others. Jane Kathleen Gregorio takes us to PNA's celebration of its 3rd anniversary in an autumn-themed formal. Here's Community Care.
This evening, nurses in the coastal bend of Texas are trading in their medical scrubs for gowns and tuxedos as the Philippine Nurses Association of Corpus Christi, Texas celebrates its 3rd anniversary with an autumn splendor formal night.
So I think the PNA, it serves, like I said, a platform. It's a networking, and we have our culture, our upbringing, and we bring it together. We have different activities and we have different specialties, but all in one, we have one love, and it's to care and to serve the community, serve the patients, and as nurses, we have this desire of networking, to have fun and then also work hard.
The PNA chapter to emulate. Salamat po at magandang gabi sa inyong lahat.
Initially planned to be the oath taking for us, but we said we wouldn't congregate because of the COVID, so we still we plan to have just a party. Wanted to have fun, and we want to give a chance and opportunity for the nurses to get out and wear something nice instead of just being in scrubs, and of course to have a party, because somehow we have to care for ourselves. We cannot care for other people if we are not happy ourselves. We are the 53rd chapter. The whole PNA was established in 1972 here in the U.S. This group was established actually in 2019, right before COVID, and we didn't think it was gonna pan out because of the COVID, and we had trouble getting together, but we did, and through resiliency, we are able to continue with this program and our organization.
So Princess Garces is the one that invited me to this wonderful event. We've known each other since our days at Shoreline on 5B Neuro. I am the president of the Coastal Bend Advanced Practice Nurses Organization. She reached out to me. As nurses, we love to support one another, of course. And like I said earlier, this is a great networking event, and everyone is always so kind and accepting, and nurses are the art of caring, for sure.
Jane Kathleen Gregorio, Eagle News, Corpus Christi, Texas. We live in extraordinary times.
Tens of thousands packed Manhattan's Javits Center for this year's comic convention, with lots of in-person attractions missed during the height of the pandemic. Abigail Comilas Dumlao on this week's Color My World.
Eager fans streamed into the Jacob Javits Convention Center for New York Comic Con 2022, the largest pop culture show in the East Coast. After rebounding from the pandemic, organizers said this year was their biggest store show ever. Fans attending the 4-day event could explore a wide exhibitor list covering anime, games, collectibles, TV, movies, comics, exclusive merchandise, and apparel. They were also able to fill their schedules with star-studded panels and meet with up-and-coming artists at Artist Alley. As always, cosplay was an important feature for fans looking to dress as or pose with their favorite characters. Approximately 200,000 people attended New York Comic Con this year, compared to 150,000 in 2021 because of pandemic restrictions. Abigail Dumlao, New York, New York, Eagle News. We live in extraordinary times.
Before we let you go, here's our photo of the week by Rani Bayuga. You're looking at Interstate 80 in Reno, Nevada, going west to California. Great for a road trip under that big blue sky. Thank you all for joining us again. If there are any stories or topics you want us to share with you, just comment below. View, like, share our other shows. City Limits with Alan Basiliaje. Connected with Dr. David. Take a seat and join us with Anna Kui. Plate Date with Mike Hudson and Friends. Plus, Journey, stories of Filipinos in Canada with Kathleen Cruz. Follow us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter at Eagle News Live. I'm Ralph Cornell. We live in extraordinary times. Happy weekend, everyone.